and welcome to the City of Palo Alto's Human Relations Commission June meeting. Elena, we're going to start our meeting now. Elena, can you please do the roll call?
Commissioner Barr.
Here.
Commissioner Causey.
Here.
Chair Eberly.
Here.
Commissioner Shea.
Here.
Vice Chair Kraus.
Here.
Commissioner Smith.
Here.
Commissioner Stimler.
Here.
Chair, you have a quorum.
Thank you. Okay, first order of business, public comment. So now it's the time for public comment on items not on the agenda. This section of the agenda is where any person can speak to the HRC and express their views. These are the views of individuals and not the views of the city or the HRC. In Palo Alto, we are committed to a culture of acceptance where all members of our diverse community feel included, safe, and respected. We encourage all speakers to honor these values and express their message without intimidation, discrimination, or language that disrespects any person. The public should know, however, that the Brown Act requires cities to accept public comment, and the U.S. Constitution provides strong support for freedom of speech. The city honors these rights, even if we strongly disagree with the speaker's message, unless a speaker disrupts the meeting or violates the HRC's rule of conduct. Elena or Minka, do we have anybody waiting for public comment? We don't have anybody here.
Let me check, Chair.
Thank you.
I don't see any raised hands virtually.
Okay, and it looks like we don't have anybody here in person, so we'll move on to the approval of minutes. Does somebody have a motion to approve the minutes from our meeting from May 9th?
I do.
Okay.
I
So-
have a motion.
Can you please
So-
use your microphone, Vice Chair?
I have a motion to approve the minutes of the last meeting. Is there a second?
Second.
So Vice Chair Kraus moves, seconded by Commissioner Smith. We're going to go ahead and vote. I'll just go down the row. Commissioner Barr,
Approve.
Commissioner Shea,
Aye.
Vice Chair Kraus,
I,
Commissioner Smith,
Yes.
Commissioner Causey. Aye. Commissioner Stimler.
Aye.
And Chair Eberly, aye. So motion carries. We've approved our minutes from last meeting. Okay, now we're going to go on to the business items. First one is a listening session with local faith leaders to better understand their needs and the communities they serve. And this is going to be led by Commissioner Smith and Stimler. So I'll pass the mic to you. Thank you. And thank you, everybody, for coming.
Thank you. We as the HRC last fall brought in the MENA and the Jewish community, and it was a very rich conversation to hear about the needs of our community. Out of that, Commissioner Stimler said it would do us well if we really care about belonging in our community to invite the faith leaders. Faith is a significant part of many people's lives in many different traditions. So we felt it is important for the city to hear from our faith leaders and to really understand like how we can help you feel like you belong more, or things that we could do for your communities to make them feel like they belong more. Commissioner Stimler.
Thank you for that great introduction, Commissioner Smith. I wanted to just add a couple of things in addition to my massive appreciation for those of you who have shown up. Many of you are cold called by me because I found your websites, or a friend mentioned that maybe we should bring in this community or that community. And so thank you all for being here. I wanted to just give you a little bit more information about what this is. What is HRC? I think for some of you, this may be your first time sitting here in the City Council room. And so it's great for you to be here. And I think in many ways, the Human Relations Commission tries to be that bridge. The mission of the Human Relations Commission is to help our city address the needs of our most vulnerable residents. And I think this is why it's really important for us to make these connections with our faith leaders because of two reasons. One is that you often know and are working to serve those vulnerable communities amongst us. And secondly, because of your role in that, and also because so many religious communities are also vehicles for addressing the community's needs of the vulnerable. And so that's why we're really excited to have you here and to form this connection and to hopefully warm this connection between the city and our religious communities and with our faith leaders, so that you know that in the future, if you do have a concern, if you're hearing things from your communities, the HRC is a great opportunity. We're much less formal than the city council. Often our agendas are a little looser, and we can help you meet some of those needs as well. So thinking through how can we work better together as a city and with our religious communities. I also want to just say a quick word about just how we found you, and also address some of the folks who aren't in this room as well. We started with a list of 46 religious communities that we knew had a physical presence in Palo Alto. And we went down that list and we made those phone calls. Sometimes they were to your front desk and someone forwarded that message to you or to someone else who forwarded that message to you. And so it was a bit haphazard. We don't have a really up-to-date, legit list of every religious leader in Palo Alto. And I say this because you may look around and be like, oh, why isn't so-and-so here? Or why isn't so-and-so here? And if that's the case, please let them know. We'd be open to listening to them at another time. They can reach out to the committee. They can reach out to, the commission or myself, and we'd be happy to invite other folks back. The other challenge was that there are large religious communities within Palo Alto that don't have a physical presence in the city. And so when you look around, you'll see there are very few East or South Asian residents here, even though we know that's a very large population within Palo Alto. And part of that was because we didn't invite folks from religious communities that didn't have a physical presence. So and again, if that was an omission, and if someone would like to connect the commission to those communities, we'd be very grateful. And finally, just a word about the structure for tonight. So in order to try to make this a little bit more intimate, we're going to have folks come up in groups of 4. I'll just go down the list. So we'll go in the order in which you signed in. And we'll ask you to read your statements or to make 3 minutes of comments about how we can create greater belonging, working together with our religious communities in the city. And after that, after all 4 presenters have given their formal statements, we'll have a Q&A with the commission, and then we'll ask the next 4 folks to come up. Yeah.
The one thing is,
Oh, right. So I think with that, we can begin. I have the first group will be Ariane Bertan from the Baha'i Faith, Eileen Altman from First Congregational Church, Samina Sundas from the American Muslim Voice Foundation, and Paul Taylor from the Peninsula Bible Church.
Just one quick comment. The way that we're going to handle it is we're going to have all the faith leaders speak, then we'll open for public comment before the commissioners ask questions. Thank you. We'll do it after. No, just one.
Sorry, that's my fault. That's a procedural thing. Okay, so
We'll do it at the end.
we'll call people up in groups of 4 to give your statements, and then we'll save all the Q&A for after the public comment. The problem is we don't have enough microphones for the number of speakers we have.
I see what
Could
you
we
mean.
count the Q&A as part of their comments?
Let's change that then. Let's go ahead and ask questions.
Okay,
I
thanks.
see the problem.
Yeah, it's just a logistics issue because we don't have a big enough, luckily we had enough participation that we don't have a big enough number of microphones. Okay, great. So in that case, Samina, do you want to, Samina, do you want to start, or do you want to start down there? All right.
My name is Reverend Dr. Eileen Altman. I'm Associate Pastor at First Congregational Church. We worship on the corner of Embarcadero and Lewis Roads. We have about 760 official members of our congregation, but based on Christmas Eve attendance, there are probably about 1,000 people who call our church their church. The most important part of what we do is our worship service on Sunday mornings at 10 o'clock. We have a vibrant program for our children and youth, and that is something that our congregation is really committed to, is supporting young people in their growth and development. We also have a beautiful and amazing music program with a concert series on Sunday afternoons. I suspect the folks in our neighborhood sometimes get tired of all of the people parking in the neighborhood around our events, but I also suspect they're used to it. Kind of outreach we do to support our most vulnerable neighbors includes hosting Hotel de Zinc every year during the month of March. We also are a safe parking site. We have regular education programs to sort of help our congregation to grapple with some of the big issues of our time, like affordable housing, racism, what's happening in Gaza and Israel and Palestine, those kinds of whatever is sort of timely and a matter of justice and folks that are feeling vulnerable, as well as how that might be affecting our relationships in the community. We usually talk about those kinds of things. One challenge in dealing with the city occasionally that arises is that sometimes we feel a little bit taken for granted, that our spaces are, important in the community, but sometimes we don't feel like the city leaders always recognize how important faith communities are as gathering spaces. We are the one place where intergenerational communities gather week after week after week. And that kind of gathering is really important and it really matters. So the other way it occasionally shows up is things like, for example, our church was listed as a place where a bunch of affordable housing would be developed. And when the housing element was put together, and nobody talked to us about that ahead of time. And that was weird. So those are just a couple of comments, but mostly I would say our folks in our church feel very much a part of the community, or often leaders in the community. So we feel ourselves very much a part of Palo Alto. Thank you.
Just go down the line. All right, my name is Paul Taylor. I'm one of the teaching pastors at Peninsula Bible Church in Palo Alto. We are on Middlefield in Midtown. We've been around about 75 years, probably a similar size to First Congregation, maybe 1,000 or 1,200 adults connected to the community, maybe 700 adults on a typical Sunday morning. Our ministry tends to be focused on various demographics. So we have a strong children's program, a strong youth program, programs for men, for women, for young adults. We have a strong recovery program where we help alcoholics and addicts and help them work through their recovery and come alongside of them. Seniors ministry, we, like Eileen was saying, I think we have kind of an even spread of ages from birth until late life. And that's really a great blessing to see that kind of community come together. In terms of outreach to the community, we also do Hotel de Zinc, and we have a shower ministry that we open our campus up for showers on Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays. And then also on Sunday evenings, we have twice a week, we do meals, Sunday evenings and Friday evenings for unhoused folk in the community. And a lot of that goes through our recovery ministry. Our recovery ministry spearheads a lot of our outreach, a lot of VA connection, a lot of veterans. In general, our community tends to be maybe a third Palo Alto residents and 2/3 probably outside Palo Alto. We're mostly Palo Alto and South, mostly Palo Alto, Mountain View, and Sunnyvale would be the majority of our community. And I think my comments for the city would be not so much how the city could help us, but how we could help the city. I think people don't always think to ask faith communities for help when problems come up. And we literally have an army of people that would love to help when problems arise. And so very eager to serve, very eager. We would love to be a blessing to the city. And I think kind of as Eileen was sharing, I'm not sure people know that we're here and that we would love to be a positive influence, a positive presence, kind of offer ourselves when needs might arise. So we would love to be kind of kept in the loop about things that may come up, and we are certainly available to step into situations as they rise. So thanks for having me.
Hi, my name is Ariane Bertrand, and I am a member of the Palo Alto Baha'i community. And thank you for having us and including us, because I know a lot of folks probably are not as familiar with us as others. The Baha'i faith, which was founded about 180 years ago, is among the youngest of the major world religions, and it is established in almost every country in the world. And the Baha'i community in Palo Alto dates back to 1912. And for those of you who aren't so familiar, some of the major principles of the Baha'i faith include the oneness of God and religion, the oneness of humanity and freedom from prejudice, the inherent nobility of the human being, the progressive revelation of religious truth, the integration of worship and service, the centrality of justice and equality in all human endeavors, and ultimately, sort of this notion of a twofold purpose, which is to attend to our individual spiritual and intellectual growth while simultaneously being an active contributor to the betterment of the world. And the activities of the Baha'i community revolve around worship and service, and we have many similar of activities that have been mentioned. We have devotional gatherings that are open to everyone and offer a place for uplifting prayer and fellowship, educational activities for children, teens, and adults that aim to raise up individuals and families with the skills and motivation to be of service to their communities. And we also have things like study circles, conversations around these difficult issues that were mentioned, and service projects that draw anywhere from dozens of people to hundreds of people. And we are an organically growing community, and unlike other faiths, we do not have clergy or leadership, and we don't have a local place of worship. So we rely on Baha'is and others who participate in the activities to host in their homes, or we rent space from the city, which brings me to the greatest need that we have, which is affordable rental space. We often need to rent large and small rooms, like at the Mitchell Community Center, to allow for gatherings of different sizes and different ages. But obviously, this costs hundreds of dollars. And we also don't accept funds from people who are not registered Baha'is. So it draws on limited resources that we have. And, you know, many of our events, we have events all the time, evenings, weekends. And so, you know, you have to add on the attendant cost. And so it makes it quite prohibitive for us to have these events that are open to the larger Palo Alto community. So, and looking ahead, I think we see that this challenge will only increase. We've talked about affordability. We know the situation in the Bay Area. And so, you know, it's not an easy problem to solve, but when we thought about really what was the greatest need at this time for our community, this is what we had. So thank you, and happy to answer any questions.
Assalamu alaikum. May peace be upon all of you. My name is Samina Sundas, and I'm the founding executive of American Muslim Voice Foundation. For the past 25 years, we have been serving here. I've been opening my home to my fellow Americans for Ramadan, for Eid, for anything that would bring us together. Because I have realized, even though I've been living in Palo Alto for 42 years, I have only very few friends. And that's because of the organizations that I have joined, like Multi-Faith Voices for Peace and Justice and my faith friends. But that's sad because person like me who wants to just do this, build long-lasting friendships, people don't see me as worthy of friendships, I would say. Otherwise, there is no other reason. I remember one time I was going knocking at the doors and giving them very formal invitation to my neighbors specifically to come for my iftar dinner. And one of the mom was inside. She looked at me and she just opened the crack door and then said, "What do you want?" And I was taken aback. I said, "I don't want anything. I just want to invite you to my home for iftar dinner." She said, "Oh, just leave it outside there." And I was so insulted that I came back home. I didn't have the courage to go on and invite other people. And I came home and I told my daughter, and my daughter said, "You should have yelled back." And I said, I can't do that. And then after that, the next day, I was going to go out and I had flowers in my hand. And my daughter said, "Don't tell me you're taking these flowers to that woman." And I said, "I am." And she said, "Why would you do such a thing?" I said, "Because maybe she was having a bad day. I'm just going to give her benefit of the doubt." Needless to say, she didn't open the door again. I left the flowers and came. I know once in a while city tries to do events, but I think we need to do more. We need to have some kind of sample where people are encouraged to make friends that don't look like you. And that's what my dream is. And that's the reason I founded American Muslim Voice formally in 2003. And since then, I think many of you probably have attended our events. We bring people together face to face 4 times a year. Eid festival, iftar dinners, peace picnics, or some open house or some educational event. And then we have one at the county, Pakistan Day. So we have attendance anywhere from 250 to 425. And it's just amazing feeling at that time. And people love it. But we are not supported organization. We feel like we are orphans because Muslims say you do work in the mainstream, they should support you. Mainstream thinks our name is American Muslim Voice Foundation, so Muslims should support you. So we do benefit both of them, but nobody supports us. And last year, city told me that I can't even apply for that grant, the $1,000 grant they give once or twice a year. And I asked them why, and they said, because you don't just invite Palo Alto citizens. And to me, it was just, I can't say I'm sending invitation to the whole world and say only Palo Alto people can come. So maybe you guys need to fix that. So my community need is basically to be seen, to be heard, to acknowledge our service that we have been doing in this community, in this city, in this county for decades, and recognize it, please. And then if we are in pain, just like we are now, because of Gaza, see us, see our tears, see our heartbreak. And to say that we can figure out, solutions for things that happen in Palo Alto is not acceptable because it is happening to Palo Alto citizens. So please do something, change your policies, whatever. Teach people to be compassionate. And to me, I'm talking about Palestinians right now because the things have gone crazy, but I don't want any lives just wasted. No Israeli, no, Russian, no Pakistani, no Saudi Arabian, no life. All lives should be treated equally. And I believe the day we will start doing that, white life, black life, all this would be equal, a lot of our problems would disappear. I believe in that. Thank you.
Thank you all for your profoundly important comments. One question for the 4 of you. If there was one specific thing you feel the city could do to improve your community's feeling of belonging, like a specific thing, like not a specific sermon, but a specific thing, What would you say the city could do? What is that specific thing? Because as we have a council member here, we will write a report, we will send things up. I know how people will ask, like, what's a specific thing? So I'd love to hear if you have any specifics.
So saying that see us, hear us is not specific enough?
Well, it's very important to me. I'm sorry, my son, it's very important. But to give you an example, Dr. Altman talked about feeling like the city didn't value the houses of faith in how we look at policies and different things in the city. So that might be interesting. How do we have the city engage houses of faith around policy? I think and I'm also clergy. I think sometimes when we do city policies in Palo Alto, we forget that houses of faith have the highest population density and are also some of the largest landowners. But then we get treated very third party when certain things, policies, like we always are at the bottom of it. And I know because we've had these conversations, but like that's an example of how we could say what are things that could possibly be done. Pastor Taylor gave a phenomenal example where he said, how do the city connect a house of faith with events like Mayfet, the barbecue, or doing things like the cooling centers, feeding? Like, how do we get these between the two of them? They said they had 2,000 people. How do we engage 2,000 people in our community to do something else? So that's what, like, some of those tangible things are not. I know, or let me not. I can say now, I know that our council sometimes wants real like specifics. So I'm just trying to not use your time as valuable as we can. I'm sorry, ma'am, your name?
Ariane.
Ariane gave a great thing. I know there is a nonprofit discount for renting the center, but it's still $1,000. Is there a discount that could possibly go to these faith building community spaces? You gave a great example saying, let's create more events that create a community of belonging. So there is a lot so that's what I heard from your comments, but is there anything else that you would bring forward?
Well, I think one other thing, and you mentioned it a little bit, but looking to faith communities to have conversations with the wider community around some of these issues that are, really prevalent. And I think our community is very diverse, and I don't think everyone feels very welcomed in the community. And so I think probably I would say race relations is the number one thing we should be talking about. And how can we help the community do that?
And I don't believe it should be just talking. We should be doing things together. Encourage people to get to know your neighbors. Just, maybe have neighborhood block parties where city can just provide some services, and so it's not expensive for people to organize. And for Muslim community and Palestinian community and probably Israeli community, Jewish people, right now, ceasefire is the best thing you can do for us. If you could just convince the city to do that, that would be wonderful.
One specific community, kind of sub-community we have in our community, we actually have a lot of refugee families. We have a large Ukrainian population, probably about 12 or 15 Ukrainian families living with families from our church. We have a lot of first-generation immigrants, both from China and Singapore, other parts of the world. So I didn't come in thinking about this, but since you're asking for specific something to help new people in the community to get plugged in, that's, these Ukrainians are coming with nothing and they're trying to build a life in one of the most expensive places in the world. But anything the city can offer to help that transition might be really beneficial for some of those folk.
You had somebody in your church right there, right, Dr. Altman?
That actually reminded me.
generation immigrant family in your church with a similar experience.
Yes, we also have done that. Yes. So similar kinds of needs. Yes.
Mhm.
That's a great.
So because of that, I was thinking, is it possible that city could have citywide rummage sale? I don't want to sell my stuff, but I want to give it to people that who needs it, and they would respect the things that, I collected with love. I want to give it away with love. So maybe something, we can do that people can just, go and pick up whatever they need.
Well, I will say that Facebook does have buy nothing groups. So I understand you have to be on Facebook and you have to join these groups. But I am sure some people in the church are probably involved in those groups. But yes, maybe the city could facilitate some kind of exchange. I know that they do a citywide tag sale, garage sale once a year. Maybe they can do the same thing, but with just free items.
I feel like this is a little bit in the weeds policy wise, but I'm just going to say it, there's issues around zoning that come up sometimes around because a lot of our faith communities are in R1 neighborhoods. Mine is, for example, not all of them, but there can be issues around our neighbors and sort of what their needs and expectations are and what happens in a faith community. And I think sometimes our city staff doesn't quite know how to handle those kinds of issues skillfully. And I would just, and I'm not sure exactly what the specific ask would be, but just to recognize that that faith communities aren't just sort of a faceless enemy to the neighbors, but it's made up of a lot of Palo Altans who are in there, and that the city staff can sort of try to approach all of us with a sense of recognizing that we too are Palo Altans. And I don't know how to say that more specifically, but that's my thing. But I guess that's a specific request.
I think that goes back to your point about the respect for faith institutions. Me and Reverend Paul Taylor share neighbors, so he cannot, as we go through this. And I know Rabbi Booth's youth building had some of these challenges. I have once had our institution's been there since 1965. We were there before they built any of the houses around us. And most of our institutions are on the property longer than the people around. And I remember one time doing a COVID vaccination, and a neighbor came to me and said, "You didn't tell us you were doing a COVID vaccination, so I don't know why all these people are lining the block." I think the city needs to also make clear to those people that complain that these are long-term valued landowners that pass social services and add to the diversity of our community. We are not interlopers that are bothering people that bought a house, even if it was 20 years ago, because we've been in most of our spaces for 70, 80, 100 years. And I think I have come to the feeling, particularly as we were doing the safe parking lots, that the churches were looked at as if we were the invaders in the community and we were the pariahs. Or anytime you want to build anything or fix anything or change anything on your property, it's as if we were the ones that aren't the longest term people in the community. We don't give services back, and we aren't the largest property owner. But that's just me.
I resonate with all of that. Yes. But at the same time, we want to be good neighbors to all of our neighbors.
I agree.
Yes.
Great. Well, thank you to this group who were our brave first group. I know a few additional speakers have joined since this group took. So just so you know how we're going about this, if you've joined recently, please see Elena and Minka up there, and they will add you to the speaker list. And then we are calling groups up in 3 or 4. I think the last 2 groups we'll do as 2 groups of 3. And then we'll have small discussion after the groups come. They do their 3 minutes of remarks to the commission, and then we have a short discussion with the folks who are at the podium. This is just the way to make it work because you don't have enough microphones for everyone to speak at the same time. And with that, let me call up Chaim Kurdzinski, James Nokun, and Burke Owens. And then I think, Elena, does that mean we have then 3 speakers for the next group? Yes. Okay, so we'll do 3 and 3. Great. Chaim, you want to take it away? Thank you.
Hi, everyone. My name is Chaim Korzinski. I am the rabbi of Congregation Eitz Chaim, which is a Jewish community, a congregation on Alma. And I really appreciate the opportunity to speak to all of you today and to have this opportunity to come together with other faith leaders and to really to show our best. In other words, to really bring us together, to shine light on ways that we can come together and show what connects us rather than what divides us. And in that spirit, I also want to mention that our site on Alma is the former site of the YWCA. And so doing programs for the community is very important to our congregation. We host a safe parking program. I believe we're the first synagogue in Palo Alto, and I hope that will grow. We also provide community programs, including tango, folk dancing, Overeaters Anonymous, day camps to support community life in Palo Alto. We also have a very strong relationship. We share our space with Spark Church, a very close relationship with Pastor Danielle. We also share a parking lot with St. Andrews and St. Andrews Methodist, United Methodist, and they have we actually use our parking lot for food distribution. That's a program that's run by Pastor Saul and their Southeastern Asian community. So I definitely encourage you to reach out to Pastor Saul if you haven't already. A big concern right now for us is the rising anti-Semitism here in Palo Alto and, of course, across the country. I don't need to tell you about some of the examples of the rise in anti-Semitism, but just to mention a couple. First, the incident that occurred at the public library, Palo Alto Public Library, when the section of Holocaust books there were anti-Semitic stickers that were plastered all over that section. In the last year, we've also had many bomb threats at Beth Am, causing the congregation to evacuate during services. And of course, what's happening on campus at Stanford, as well as in the schools, the public schools, are very concerning for our congregants and for our families. And I don't want to go so much into specifics because I believe you know them. What I want to focus on is the impact that it has on us as a community. And I'll speak personally. When we feel that our community is under attack, or when there rise in these anti-Semitic incidences, it makes us go more insular, go inside of ourselves, and to question whether or not we can be Jewish publicly. And I'll speak personally. I walk around with a kippah, a yarmulke, and over the last 6 to 8 months, I've started to wonder whether or not I really should be walking around in downtown Palo Alto or just around town, going to Mitchell Park, wearing my kippah. And it's very upsetting to me that I would have to question that. display of my Jewish identity. I just led a congregational trip to Spain, and we, of course, were taken back by the periods of history in Spain in the Middle Ages when there was beautiful cooperation between the faith communities, the Muslim community and the Christian community. And then, of course, there were times when the political winds changed and the Jewish community did not feel comfortable anymore expressing their Judaism in public, and they had to go private, and they were forced to either convert or hide their Judaism, or leave Spain. And of course, we're not at that point yet. God willing, we won't reach that point. But I want to end by saying that one of the symbols for us that's very potent, and actually it shows up in this week's Torah portion, is the symbol of the menorah, right? The candelabra that stood in the temple. And for us, of course, we light the menorah or the Chanukiah during Hanukkah. And we're instructed to put the menorah, the light, in the most public place of our house. It's either in the window or outside of our door. And the message there is to take the miracle of Hanukkah, the light of Hanukkah, and share it with our neighbors and put it out there publicly. And as I said earlier, with the rise of anti-Semitism, the light is coming more and more inside the house. And it's unfortunate for the Jewish community, and it's unfortunate for all faith communities. And so, again, I thank you for this opportunity for us to come together and to remind ourselves that we all have a beautiful light to share, and reminding us that when any community, when their light is diminished, our communal light is diminished. And if we can have more of these opportunities to bring our light together, so that we can be a beacon of light and hope to our communities and to the greater Bay Area.
Good evening. My name is James Nokuhn. I'm with the Ananda Church of Self-Realization of Palo Alto. Long legal name. We just go by Ananda. It's a lot simpler. Ananda means joy in Sanskrit. We're a little hard to sort of classify what are we, because we're neither Christian nor Hindu, but we're both. We follow the teachings of a man by the name of Paramahansa Yogananda, who came to the West in 1920. And we've been around for a little over 50 years. We've been in Palo Alto for a little over 30, actually 35 years. We've been in our particular temple on El Camino and college, and for just almost exactly 30 years now, 1994. Our congregation is made up of a wide array of anything that you could imagine. A number of people who were born and raised in this area. Most of the people actually reside in the city of Mountain View, because spiritual community is another important aspect of our teachings. And we happen to operate an apartment complex that is about 100 feet across the border into Mountain View, directly across the railroad tracks from our friends here, just coincidentally. But the temple is in Palo Alto, so we have the presence here in the city. We really facilitate more the individual's relationship with God, and less so on doing things like going out, doing outreach programs, and sort of attracting people through going out into the broader community. It's not that we have anything wrong with that. We all live in the community. Some individuals aspire to doing different things and being municipally minded and so forth, but that tends not to be where our focus is as an organization. All of the things that I've heard here tonight are wonderful things, and I support them. I can't say there are things that necessarily impact Ananda specifically. We don't, because we don't do a lot of outreach programs, we don't get involved in a lot of the social services that would serve the broader community. Not for lack of caring, but for lack of, our focus is really on the individual with the soul nature that each of us have with God, and helping those individuals do that. We in particular focus on meditation and yoga classes. Yoga is more than just getting the body healthy in the the gyms of the world. It is a particular spiritual practice for us, but we open that to anybody who wants to join in. We have classes, a few classes, yoga classes every week. We have our Sunday services open to everybody and anybody. We probably have about, on an average Sunday service, maybe about 130 people. Our membership is about 200 people who are regular members. We have many thousands who sometimes participate, but they're very broad in geography. We draw from all over Silicon Valley because the man whose teachings we follow originated in India. We are very attractive to people who were born in India who find themselves working here in Silicon Valley, typically on work visas. So we have, in this broader sense, a very racially diverse, a very gender diverse, many of us were born in other religions and other faiths. We are just now seeing a second generation come back into Ananda. But most of us were born in something else and we're not feeling fulfilled there. And we're looking for something. And that's really what Ananda is about, is those people who are looking for something they aren't able to find elsewhere. And so we're trying to magnetize the teachings in that way. The beacons of light, which is a term that I think almost everybody in this room can associate with in one form or another.
Hello, my name is Burke Owens. I'm the senior pastor at the First Palo Alto United Methodist Church, and we've been at 625 Hamilton, to the best of my knowledge, since before the city was incorporated, the mid-1890s. So we're now about 130 years old. This is our third church structure. The one you see if you drive by us is unique, safe to say, beautiful, but different. It's a ship of spirit, I think. And the Methodist Church, United Methodist Church, has also been around for quite a while, since 1968. The denomination was founded in the 18th century with John and Charles Wesley. Recently, some of you might have heard that if you track the news about religious change, our general conference has finally changed the negative language and negative attitude toward LGBTQIA peoples. And we're very grateful for this change, because here in California, we've been doing it a long time. Not as much in Texas, not as much in Mississippi, not as much in Ohio, not as much in some other parts of the country. So our church now finally feels like it's aligned with the best of our progressive desires, both in spirit as well as in the practical nature of working with the community that surrounds us. We are one of 4 Methodist churches here in town. One was mentioned, St. Andrews. There's also Wesley. There's also Aldersgate and ourselves. Of the 3 churches, 2 of them are mainly Tongan in membership and focus. And one is Japanese American, an historic Japanese American Methodist church going back to before World War II. And then there's our church, First Palo Alto, which not only has our Anglo-Saxon members, we also have the First Tongan Church that we share the sanctuary and have worship at different times. So between our churches, we have, I think 1,500 Methodists in Palo Alto, which we're very pleased about. As anyone will say who's a pastor or who is in leadership role with any faith community, the numbers aren't what they were. Religion, and at times even spirituality, is treated with suspicion by many people in our world. I grew up in an atheist household in the Northeast. The New Yorker was our Bible. And I've grown to appreciate God and Christ and the Spirit in a way I never would have expected. And so I now feel fully part of my Methodist tradition. But for a long time, I would have seen it as being, oh, you poor fools. How could you believe in anything so clearly unprovable, unscientific, unrealistic? And that's the challenge I feel that all of our faith communities have here in Palo Alto, but not just Palo Alto, throughout the United States, but especially in the more enlightened, more economically diverse, more focused areas such as the coasts. And this part of the Bay Area is very strong on that. Religion is seen as being something that our grandparents did or our grandparents did. And I think it's important that for our relationship with the city, that there be a sense of mutual respect and a sense of what we bring, so to speak, to the table, which is not just people, it's people of faith. And people of faith do great things. People of faith start religions, and people of faith create new nations. People of faith create new businesses. So please help us to be what we can be as we help you, the city, to be what you can be. A place where God, or whatever you want to call it, the mystery behind all of creation, but where that is central to our lives and we can respect it and honor it and go about our business doing the best we can. I'd just like to close that there's a great statement that's part of our Methodist tradition, which many of the churches will say and even have written on a wall in the church: open hearts, open doors, open minds. This is where we really try to be welcoming to all people. No matter if you're Methodist, no matter if you're Christian, no matter if you're Jewish, no matter if you don't believe at all, but you know there's something you cannot identify, something you cannot understand. And you want to be with people who help you to be able to have those conversations and to realize that you're not alone, that God or the mystery or even our faith is with us always. Thank you for inviting us here this evening. This is very meaningful to be able to share and hear other people sharing, and more to come. I hope we can do this on a regular basis because it'll make a big difference, I think, in all of our lives and in the health and vitality of this area. Thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen, for your profound and enlightening comments. Is there anything or one thing you'd like to see the city do to help with these points of light or anti-Semitism or respecting people? Is there one thing you would want us to take back to the city to say, hey, this might be a good thing to try?
I would just say, if you can include us, faith communities in general, in decision-making and in seeing us as a valued set of partners in this community. And that's as simple as, it's not, oh, and there's also the churches. All of us are deeply passionate and patriotic also. We want this to work. We might have different reasons for wanting it to work, but ultimately we all want to be together so that you can respect us and see us as valuable, not those loonies who are going to church.
I will never see you like that.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that.
I think what you're hearing echoed here is that this is a great example of the city being a convener. And I think there are a lot of reasons why it's challenging to convene the faith community. And we just to use an example of 9/11, the anniversary of 9/11, Samina has been amazing at convening different communities around the commemoration of 9/11. And in fact, for the 15th anniversary in 2016, we actually came together as different faith communities and we did a walk, which you were a part of. And we actually stopped at different houses of faith.
Your synagogue, went to my church.
Exactly.
We went to the Catholic church down the street. It was very ecumenical.
And then we concluded with a wonderful picnic, thanks to Samina and other communities in Mitchell Park. Exactly. But as Samina said, her resources are limited. And so can the city help us find other opportunities, maybe in addition? We're coming up on the 25th, right, in 2026, anniversary of 9/11, but we don't have to wait until then. I went to a wonderful gathering in Mitchell Park for MLK Day. And it was a wonderful community event, but I didn't really see any faith communities represented at that day. Or Juneteenth, what to look for opportunities for the city to be a convener, again, to help us leverage our resources to come together for points of connection.
Yeah, we'll talk about that in a few. Yes. Uh,
I don't have any specific requests. Our interactions with the city of Palo Alto have been relatively few, but actually very helpful. We just recently installed a new HVAC system and we got rebates through the utilities. So little things like that.
That's a miracle.
The decision the other day about the parking on El Camino Real is going to impact us. So parking is an issue. Our parking lot is probably 15 spaces to fit 125 people. And so I don't know what we're going to have to do then. But I haven't felt like the city is ignoring us. It's going to impact all the businesses along El Camino. But just being aware of our presence and I have felt that. So just continuing that.
Is the city parking lot that is 1 block over from California Avenue? How far is that from your location?
It's a block and a half maybe. We are competing with the farmers market people on California on Sunday mornings. So often our people are parking in the neighborhood, which is getting increasingly difficult to find spots. It's not a problem. I don't know what's going to happen when parking is no longer available on El Camino. A lot of our members park there on Sunday mornings because the businesses for the most part are closed. We'll see. I don't know.
So building on that, we also recently installed an HVAC system. So we now have a cooling system and a heating system. And once again, just to think of, Eitz Chaim as a resource, as a place, as a gathering place in South Palo Alto. If God forbid there was an emergency and you needed, a place for people to gather, to think of us as that. We used to be we're a former voting site. So again, any of these sort of municipal or other emergency, God forbid, opportunities to think of us as a resource.
I have a question. I was going to ask with the last group, but now that you mentioned the AC, has the city approached you to be a cooling center during the summer for the unhoused when the temperatures get really high? Is that something that they've talked?
Not to my knowledge, although I turn to my executive director. No.
Okay.
No.
Thank you.
Another question, Pastor Eileen has a safe parking, so do you at Eitz Chaim, but is everybody being approached as the problems on El Camino come to a head? It's at top of my mind, and I know Councilwoman Julie, it's top of her mind, and so many of us, what is going to happen to the RV dwellers?
Vice Chair, could you put the microphone a little closer to your?
We've got all 3 of these on.
Oh, please hit the buttons, gentlemen. Turn it off. Thank you.
That was it. I'm just very concerned about this going forward. And I think our brethren in the faith community are our allies. And we need you.
One thing I will say on that point, because I did reach out, the same list that brought you all here today was the same list I reached out to for the RV dwellers as well. And we did get some feedback, one, that the process is quite cumbersome. So if folks who have tried to apply for safe housing know that the city has streamlined that significantly now. The process is not the same as it was a couple of years ago. But I was going to say, but the challenge, the feedback we heard from was not that the congregations were unwilling, but that the neighborhood opposition is often extremely significant, especially for RV, because these are not nighttime parking lots. These are full-time RV dwellers. And so we know that many of you have really pushed and tried. And so thank you for that as well.
I have a question which is different than the other questions, and it has to do with my role also being on the board of directors of the Avenidas Senior Center. And my question is, to what extent do you become aware of the senior members of your community under stress, particularly economic stress. And the largest concern of seniors by a poll recently done is housing and the affordability of housing. Are you experiencing that the senior members of your community come and talk to you or express their difficulties with things like housing and affordability?
We are not hearing that from our seniors who are members or associates of our church. They are blessed economically, so it's not been an issue for them. But I know that we have La Comida coming in 5 days a week, and I wonder about some of the folks that are coming in, what their housing situation is like. I'm not hearing that from them, but it's the kind of conversation that does need to happen, of course, especially as we get into the heat of the summer. And with the headlines around the world, it's very frightening to think of what might happen.
We hear about it almost daily. We had a great number of our congregation is over 70. We're seeing a number of them. There are Ananda communities up and down the West Coast, different entities, but we're all linked together. So we had just yesterday, somebody moved to our facility in Sacramento just because of affordability. Just a number of them have moved to Portland for the same reason. We don't really have any solutions. Again, most of our people live in the apartment complex that's in Mountain View, but even looking at what's available in both Palo Alto and Mountain View, there's not a lot of help. And that generation of people, they're, as we all know, they're very independently minded. So they're less apt to reach out, and they're just trying to figure out, okay, here's what my fixed income is, here's what I can afford, and here's where I can do that. And it's unfortunately, it makes it kind of a simple formula. It doesn't necessarily meet their life and their extended family people. Sons and daughters and in-laws and whatnot often pay that price.
I have a question just for reference. Are the residences market rate or below market rate, or is there, just so we understand, like the financial pressures, is it a market rate pressure or a below market rate pressure?
The apartments that we operate, we lease a property and then sublease it to all the individual tenants. So it's market rates because we don't own it. We have the master lease. We have elected not to go the route of, even though a large percentage of people would probably likely meet those certain income thresholds where there could be some advantages and some reliefs. We have elected not to go that route because of various reasons, in particular, the owners who are separate from us. But that said, we also are a spiritual life of renunciation. So our apartment complex that was built around 1960 has really never been upgraded. We don't have things like dishwashers. We don't have most of the amenities that people have. There are still market rates, but the largest, my wife and I live in a 550 square foot, 1-bedroom apartment. That's very typical. So even though it's a market rate, we scale it down and can make that a little bit more affordable in that way.
Yeah, we have several members of our community that are at risk in terms of housing, and a few of them do take advantage of Section 8 housing here in Palo Alto. And so I want to thank the city for those opportunities that they can remain in Palo Alto. We also do have Jewish Family and Children's Services that also provide an important support role for those individuals. And we have also worked with Avenidas as well. But again, any support from the city or please communicate that to us. We'd be very grateful.
I have a question for staff. Do we still have CDB funding for senior projects? Is that still part of the portfolio?
For senior what? I'm sorry.
I know a few years ago, through the HUD grant, there was like home improvements, things that you could do with senior.
I believe there still is the contract with the organization that does help seniors with home repairs.
Okay.
I
Would that-
don't think it's Rebuilding Together, or the contract might be with Habitat for Humanity, or the name is escaping me right now, but I believe they still are getting CDBG funding.
Would that be helpful to your communities if there was funding to fix housing for seniors?
It's like, I think grab bars, maybe some other accessibility issues and so forth, and some other home repairs.
I think what would be really helpful is, I mean, all this is stuff I know nothing about. So having a repository of what the resources are so that we can in turn distribute it, thinking of as kind of a wholesaler of this kind of information. I don't know if our seniors are aware of that kind of information or not.
I will let you know, obviously, Avenidas is a great repository of information, but also Elena and I are staff of the Office of Human Services for the city. And on our website, we have, we're kind of like the 211 for the city. So we have a information referral database in like 9 categories of information that folks are welcome to peruse. Also, anybody in the city that wants to call and say, I need this human services types of programs, they are welcome to call Elena and I, and we are just like, we try to shepherd them to find the right services for them. So the other thing, and I realized I was going to bring the flyers and I didn't. I'm going to say this later just to the commission, but I know I've sent announcements to some in the audience, but we are currently doing a human services needs assessment to see the needs of our community. And there are those in the room I've sent it to and those that I have not. We're doing a survey and we're doing a community forum. But with all of your information, those of you that I don't have, I will work with Mary Kate to send you information, the links to those resource sites, and to hear from the folks that you work with what their needs are, because it helps inform a grant program that we have for human services agencies. That's almost $1 million that helps with community needs. And the Human Relations Commission is the recommending body to the city council on who gets grants. So I will send that out, and I'm taking up more time than I should. So I give this back to Commissioner Simler. And
Can you share your email address and your phone number for everybody in the audience so if they need to get the support? Because I'm pretty sure.
I'll get the email addresses from Mary Kate. That might be.
Can you share yours for all the people out here so they can get the services?
Sure. I think Elena has her business cards, so she'll leave those out. She's obviously much better than me because I don't think I have any in my wallet. But you're welcome to call us. We're happy. We're also happy, not even for human services programs. If you say, someone in XYZ department never answers the phone, how can I get a hold of them? You call us and we'll get that for you. So if you need an entree into the city, feel free to call us. And Elena just left her cards.
It's true. If you call Minka, she can figure almost anything out. It's incredible.
It's
really
a fact. It is a fact.
This is the secret behind Palo Alto.
And I'll attest, excuse me for interrupting, that Minka will get results. I have people who are not getting back to me. And you send Minka. I have a meeting, I have an appointment on Monday.
But yes, and I have sent, I think, everyone who I've reached out to about this, the survey, the needs assessment survey, but we'll resend that link as a follow-up to this meeting as well as the contact information for the human services folks.
Can I ask a question? Are these services that you're speaking of primarily for residents of Palo Alto?
They are. So the city funding, since it's city funding, it is going to, the organization doesn't have to be in Palo Alto that is providing a service, but the services have to be for residents since it is city funding.
So a congregation member of any of our facilities who happens to live just across the border?
Unfortunately not, I'm sorry. But I will say that any child in PAUSD, regardless of place of residence, is considered a Palo Alto resident. But if you want information to see, who in Mountain View, what kind of programs? I know our grants to nonprofits are much more generous than our neighboring cities.
Well, getting back to the original question of what specific things could we ask for of the city council? That would be one of the things, is to work municipality to municipality to help. Probably most of us have our congregation members, or whatever we call them, who come from multiple municipalities, not just Palo Alto. Some of us have a greater or lesser perhaps, but that's something we don't provide faith services within city limits.
Wonderful. I'm going to wrap up this subgroup and we'll bring in our last group. Thank you all so much. I feel a little bit more Jewish Methodist, Nanda. Like I felt very moved by your beautiful remarks. Thank you.
And
so
Commissioner Stimler, there was an addition from a representative from the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. So that would be the third person.
So I think anyone who hasn't spoke at this point should come up. That was my neighbor. That's how I. All right, yes, please jump right in. Thank you.
There we go. I'm Reverend Amy Zucker Morgenstern. I serve with UUCPA, as we call it for short, the Unitarian Universalist Congregation in town, which, yes, has been here for a long time. We're fine. We do not suffer discrimination like some of our kin here. And so really what I want to talk about is this issue of serving the most vulnerable. So for 75 years, UUCPA has helped people who fall in the cracks caused by inequality, particularly in the issue of housing. We are founding members of Hotel de Zinc, still going. We house Heart and Home, a safe parking. We're a longtime partner with Life Moves, helped build the Opportunity Center, and with considerable help of the government, helped build Stevenson House way back when. That was, I believe, the first HUD-subsidized senior housing in the area. In those decades, the federal and for the most part state governments have abdicated responsibility for basic needs like housing and created policies that send inequality soaring and made the cracks that people fall into more like chasms. We see the result here. I mean, how many times have people mentioned housing this evening? And here we are in one of the wealthiest communities human beings have ever gathered together. So whom did the government expect to fill in as it stepped back and stopped putting in money? Well, implicitly and explicitly often, nonprofits, including faith communities. I think rather cynically, they know we don't want to say no. And it's just getting worse. So one of our saints, Unitarian Henry David Thoreau, said, there are 1,000 hacking at the branches of evil to one who is striking at the root. And inequality and the homelessness that results and the housing insecurity that results, the fleeing from the area that results because people cannot afford to live here, all those things need root strikers. Congregations are a lot better at dealing with the branches. Maybe we can shift that. But some of it's just the nature where we help with charity and so on. We're great at, okay, something fell down for you, great. But how do we actually change the conditions that cause these problems? So I am thinking that if our local government will help address the root of the problem, and this is a part of our local government that's clearly devoted to those issues, you can count on us to show up and help. What we've got is, in our case, 250, 300 people who will show up and be citizens. What we don't have is a lot of hands on the levers of power. And one more thing, I do want to talk about, just lift up that the housing crisis hits us very personally because over and over again, great members and leaders get involved in our congregation. They're trying to live here, and again, they go to greener pastures where they can afford to live. And the turnover and turmoil that it causes in our communities, I'm sure, is multiplied out across all the faith communities and our community in general. So really excited by the thought of being more deliberate partners with the Human Relations Commission. Thank you.
My name is Yitzchak Feldman. I'm the rabbi of a congregation on El Camino in Palo Alto, which has been in its present location for 20 years. The congregation itself is coming up on 50 years. Maybe that's not true. 40 years, I think it's a little bit closer. In terms of what I want to talk about this evening, I just want to concentrate on an issue which I think everybody is aware of in terms of the Jewish community at large, and that is security. In 2022, in January, my community received word that we would get a grant from the Governor's Office of Emergency Services for $200,000 to work on various improvements in security. If you look at that document, which we looked at a little bit more closely than we looked at other documents of that nature, you will see that there were 11 pages of totaling, I think, $47.5 million, which the state gave out. In this area alone, in January of 2022, there were 3 Jewish schools, and there was another synagogue in San Jose that were all given $200,000. So that's $1 million in grants which were given to Jewish organizations that we all know from our daily lives. If you look at the document further, you will see that Chabad, a well-known Jewish organization, was the largest list of grantees, save for one, which I'll mention in a second. There was more than $5 million given to a full page of Chabad houses throughout the state. The only agency which got more money that year than Chabad was Planned Parenthood, for other reasons, which are also unfortunate. But the centers around the state for Planned Parenthood had a page plus of grants. The number of Jewish organizations, therefore, is staggering in such a list, which points out the problem that we have. And this was a problem in January 2022, well before October 7th. We happened to get around to finally building what we wanted to build just after October 7th. Everybody thought that it was because of that, but we had gotten the money a year and a half before that. During the process, we found out that there are rules if you are on El Camino, which make it so that the city does not allow for building of a certain type. So you had, on the one hand, a state agency saying that you needed this, and the city saying, well, maybe. So what the city required in the end was a 10-foot setback, an additional 10 feet of setback from El Camino, which meant a complete redoing of the parking lot in the congregation, which meant, as everybody knows, once you start to pour concrete, a price which was the same as the fence that we put around the parking lot itself. We are not a large community. We represent what I would call the most traditional side of the Jewish community, which in this area obviously faces stiff headwinds. We're not large, and that burden, which seemed quite unnecessary, because it was at odds with what the state was indicating, seemed tone deaf. It especially obviously seems tone deaf since October 7th, but even then, even before, It seemed tone deaf to what was supposed to be taking place overall, which was to take care of the Jewish community's concerns about security. We did manage to do what we needed to do, but it seemed as though the city was oblivious to the burden that it was placing on us to do something which the state thought was basic. These types of issues, this room, not just this body, but obviously the city council itself hears about these things all the time. This is the Palo Alto process as we know it to be, and it's when it comes to faith communities, there is federal legislation that is supposed to address this. That legislation has not always gotten pride of place here in Palo Alto, with very little discussion about where where compliance exactly would look like, or what it would look like. I take that as a single instance of what we have long experienced and what we've heard about tonight in terms of the trivialization of faith in the wider community, and the certain tone deafness to the needs of the faith community. We have, as everybody knows, we have, of course, gone now behind the fence, but you should not think that we are afraid. We're not afraid, and we will not be moved by what is taking place in the world around us. But I did want to point out that making our jobs a little bit easier, we think should be more of a priority.
I'm David Booth. I'm one of the rabbis at Congregation Kolamet. We're synagogue. We count by family members rather than people. So we have about 630 family members. It's probably close to 2,000 people, something like that. Among them, I just want to say, because I'll refer to this a little bit later, probably 150, 200 of them are Israelis who've been in the community for different amounts of time. I just want to pick up on what Rabbi Feldman was saying about security issues. You know, we actually just finished a few years ago building our campus. We were not eligible for any of those grants because they were only for upgrades on existing facilities. For some reason, apparently, if you build a new facility, there are no security issues associated with it. So we had to pay for that out of our own pocket. It's also unique to the Jewish community of faith communities in Palo Alto that we need to protect our campuses and institutions. Nobody else has to do that. And we're grateful for the grants from the state. But just to clarify, you know, Kolamet has a full-time security guard, and we do that because of threats that we've seen around the area and statewide and nationally. And our concern is that people simply won't feel safe coming into our facility without that, and that our facility won't be safe without that. That means we're spending, you know, low six figures annually on security, and that's true for the JCC, even larger amounts, and that's true for Hausner. I mean, in other words, this is an issue that all Jewish institutions in Palo Alto are facing. I don't believe any other faith institution of any kind is paying that kind of security and doesn't feel that kind of threat to them. So to be tangible, one thing that would really help would be to defray some of those costs. It's really very burdensome, and it's coming from threats from the wider community. I also want to say I'm grateful to the police department in Palo Alto, which has been a wonderful partner. When there are threats that they receive that don't get publicity, they'll come and they'll warn us that there's been a threat level. They'll have a squad car near our facility for the day or two around that threat. And we really appreciate how productively the police department works with the Jewish community, and I think with many communities. I'd also just want to say something about the Israeli community. You know, of course, the Israeli community is Jewish, but affiliates to greater or lesser degree with synagogues, and some of them do. It's an immigrant community. And since October 7th, I think it's been an immigrant community that's faced a lot of discomfort. I want to be clear, the Jewish community strongly supports the right to protest and civil discourse. People who want to argue about particular policies of the Israeli government, I may agree or disagree with them, but I defend their right to march and say that. But when people are denying that atrocities happened on October 7th, that's going a step further, and that's really anti-Semitism, and that's really bigotry, and it makes the Israeli community deeply, deeply uncomfortable. Many people who came here drawn by the lure of tech thought they'd go back to Israel shortly. Actually, in many cases didn't, because it's really nice here. And we live in one of the few places unironically referred to as Gan Eden, as paradise. But now we're wondering whether Palo Alto is actually safe for them. This is also true in the school situations. Many Israelis were in the Palo Alto public schools, and it's one of the larger growing immigrant communities in Palo Alto. I actually was talking to somebody just today who said his daughter earlier this year was middle school, was running at Fletcher around, they do these track races around the school. And there was a boy behind her who catches up. Yeah, and she's a sixth grade girl. He says, I'm not going to be beaten by a Jew, and zips by her. So this kind of thing happens with regularity, and it makes people deeply uncomfortable. And again, it's affected the Israeli community in particular over the last year or so, just a little bit less than a year, in new and really frightening ways. And so I think noticing and being aware of that Israeli immigrant community, they don't have, by and large, it's a community with resources. It's not that there's a lot of needs around financial concerns, but the sense of belonging and feeling like they're part of Palo Alto, I think, is tremendously at risk right now. So to be specific about a couple of things that we think would help us, I do think it would be wise to have some anti-Semitism training for city council, for this committee, and also for the school board. I think it would be good if we're going to do ethnic studies, which I think is going to be mandated next year, to include the Jewish experience. I think it would be good for library staff. We've had a couple issues with libraries, both around books being defaced and, let's just say, interesting choices by librarians, so that they understand some of the complexity they're walking into and can present really balanced views on issues that might arise, like the war in Israel and Gaza right now. The last thing I'll just say is to come back to this issue of providing human resources. Colomet has tried on a few occasions to host homeless shelters, to look into doing safe parking, and the regulations around it and the process does seem to be very difficult. I feel like the city would want to work with us to try to make that easy and simple to do, and that's not been our experience. So I think going back to city council also and urging them to identify what are the real human resources problems, work with this churches, synagogues, mosques, other faith institutions, and try to make it easier for us to do that, and bluntly be willing to tell our immediate residents sometimes that this is part of what it means to have not just a house of God in the community, but really this is what it means to be a community of inclusion and belonging. Thank you.
First of all, let me applaud you for giving us the chance to give you some feedback, what's happening in the community. Thank you. I'm Dow Wilson. I'm an elder in the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. I actually have responsibility for our church from the Golden Gate Bridge to the Oregon border. But I live here in Palo Alto. I've been Kate is my neighbor, and Brother Smith, I'm sitting next to the rabbis. Brother Smith is our church neighbor on Middlefield Road. Anyway, we have about 4,500 members in the Mid-Peninsula in 10 congregations. That'd be Redwood City, Menlo Park, and Palo Alto. I'd say about a third of those are in Palo Alto. We have 4 congregations here in Palo Alto, a meeting in 2 buildings, one on Middlefield Road and the other one on Stanford Avenue. We have 2 Tongan congregations, 1 Hispanic congregation, 2 single adult congregations, and 5 kind of geographic. We kind of divide the peninsula into geographies and encourage people to go to the church in their community so that we can be community based. And in fact, we call our congregations wards, which descends from the old political ward in the Midwest and the Northeast, so that wards from a church side could correspond to their counterparts in government. We have lots of children, and that's one of the fun things about our faith is, we're in every public and private and a number of homeschooled kids too in the community and have a perspective there. We have a strong interfaith orientation and really appreciate this effort here. But we've been, I'd say the last few years, we've had great partnership with Jewish Family Services and Catholic Charities, the International Refugee Committee. We've been very big partners of the IRC the last half a dozen years, both here in the Bay Area and up in Sacramento, as well as LA. This kind of service orientation is a big part of what we strive to do, and we're part of a website called Just Serve. Think of it as eBay for service opportunities, where people who need service and people who have the volunteer hours to give can convene in a site, and people can get the resources, the volunteer resources they need for activities. And we've done dozens of projects a year through our Just Serve initiative. We're also very engaged with Martin Luther King Day. Maybe the reason we weren't at Mitchell Park is we're with the we co-sponsor with the First United Methodist Church and the Peninsula Links, a group of African American women here in the peninsula, at a MLK celebration held here in First United Methodist. That's a multi-decade tradition, and really wonderful and grateful for that opportunity. I think, to get to your question about, what to do, just to underscore what's already been said, I think, one, government can help us convene an interfaith community. I think that's a big deal. I've lived here 20 years, and it's ebbed and flowed. I'd say when we first arrived, there was very strong interfaith council that met maybe quarterly, maybe it was 2 or 3 times a year, but it was a strong group, and we've seen that wane. But I think that's one thing that we can do. We all have differences, but what we share in common is so far greater than the differences we have, and is a beautiful thing. And for us to share it in that way would be wonderful. The second, I think, is just, and it's kind of been said in subtler ways, but maybe just to say it, is sometimes I think that relationships between government and faith community is not built on trust, and is not, and can even be adversarial at some point. And we just want to be government's partner. We're not going to do their job. We're not going to, we know our place. It's written in law, the separation of church and state in our country, and we love that and appreciate that and want that. But at the same time, it doesn't mean we have to be adversaries. We can be partners, and whatever we can do to foster that, especially in the various ways we've talked about it, but in extending the hand of fellowship to whatever need there is, refugee, homelessness, food security, just go down the list. I need somebody to come fix my IT problems, and sometimes that's somebody in my faith community. Whatever it is, we can help each other. And the last one is kind of maybe the hardest of all, which is an extension of this point, and that is, as you read the Pew study and other things that comment on regional and national trends regarding faith, our country is, in so many ways, has become more and more tolerant, but it's become more and more intolerant of faith communities. And, to continue to advocate for religious freedom, and that it's okay to be people of faith, and that we love them and admire them, is a big deal. And, if we could have that voice occasionally heard, that would be wonderful. Thank you for the opportunity to talk to you.
Thank you all. I'm going to ask a specific question. Dow, can you talk about young families and the inability to stay in the area? The only reason I know is because we've had this conversation.
It's tough. I was saying what I'd really want to ask is, could you reduce real estate pricing in the peninsula by about 70%? And if you could do that, if we had a wand, we'd all love to do that. But I would say, here in Palo Alto, of our, call it age, I joke that they all come here to work for the wonderful companies that we have in our community. And, and they meet somebody here, they get married, the first kid comes, they go in a closet. And when the second kid comes, they move. And it's usually Phoenix, Salt Lake City, Portland, Seattle. Well, Seattle's just, in fact, Seattle and Salt Lake City are becoming as expensive as the Bay Area. But it's, I'd say, the pandemic accelerated this. It was going on before the pandemic, but when remote work really opened up, okay, you're telling me I can get out of my high rent and move to Phoenix and buy a house and have a room for my kid and get him out of the closet. It's really changed things. So I'd say over the last 3-4 years, we've probably lost 15 to 20% of our 28 to 40-year-old population. The people who own homes are, we have some of the home, aging issues, but one of the things we see in that population is if they owned a home, they can sell their home and go buy a county in some other intermountain state, and that's their retirement, and so they leave. So we have seen, a significant amount of dislocation from, in our community. I would say 2.5 years ago, if it's 4,500 today in Mid Peninsula, I'd say it was probably more like 5,500 to 6,000. Interesting enough, we're seeing activity rates go up recently, so we're encouraged about that. But the absolute numbers are down.
Rabbi Booth, both rabbis, can you please talk about the undue stress that the Palo Alto process and the economics that it cost you as being a faith institution, especially in the building process?
Sure.
Take your time.
So just for a brief moment to comment on affordable housing. We were over where the grocery, I'm trying to think, what's that called? On Alma, what's it called? Grocery outlet. And there's, these nice townhomes right behind there. So my daughter happened to be in town and she really wants to come back to Palo Alto, loves the area, wants to be close to family, be great. And those townhomes are 3 million plus. So there's just nothing in Palo Alto really that's below $3 million, which is outrageous. So there needs to be something in zoning to allow more homes to be built so that our children can come back. I mean, I would like my children to live here very much.
I'm 1 out of 7.
Yeah. So I think that's a huge issue. In terms of Palo Alto process, I mean, we definitely found we had lots of back and forth with Palo Alto over our construction project. We were told, you've got to put this electrical material here, and then another department said, no, you can't put it there. That's dangerous. You have to put it over here. So when we get those kinds of back and forth, I mean, everything in it was a $28 million project. So every time we move something or have to change something around, it's tens of thousands of dollars to make those decisions. When we met with the Architectural Review Board, we were grateful for some of their input, but some of their input was borderline illegal. They wanted us to do things to the fence outside on the foothill side. The city doesn't own that fence. That's a county fence. So we were like trying to figure out how we were even going to do what the ARB wanted us to do because the county has jurisdiction over that fence. We were told that they were going to come check on we put a kind of nice brise soleil, nice wood lattice outside the building to beautify it. And the ARB wanted to have us send pictures of it every few years to make sure it wasn't fading more than we had said it would. So we found a lot of these kinds of things going on through the process. Again, we wanted to have trees but we had the tree analysts working with us. I mean, it's just a lot. There's layers and layers and layers to the process. And every single layer, we have to be evaluated to make sure our old facility wasn't an historical landmark. I mean, all of this, every time we do one of those things, it costs tens or even hundreds of thousands of dollars. And it adds significantly both to the time and to the expense. And we had to work with ARB. I mean, it took us, I'm trying to think, like about 18 months. And that was with, by the way, all of our neighbors loved our project. We had one guy who thought we should build a second layer of underground parking, but we had neighbors come out in support of our project. So the neighborhood was happy. It was just the process slowing us down and adding dramatically to the expense.
The one thing I would add to what I already said is that in terms of the process is that the grant is given for 2 years. If you don't finish within the 2 years, you lose the money. That made a tremendous amount of tension in the last 3 months because the deadline was coming and the city was still debating whether or not the hole for the new trees had to be 2 feet or 3 feet wide. This is like I said, this is something that is well known to this room in terms of complaints. But once again, the state had said that this is a priority, but the city doesn't feels, of course, that it's its own little fiefdom.
I have, by show of hands, how many faith leaders have spent thousands of dollars to participate in the Palo Alto process for an improvement?
I feel like you have an issue going on here, Cloma.
No, so a lot of you are my friends. So I've heard this, I've gone to the dinners and I've sat at your houses or sat in your car. And I've heard where in hard times to raise $1 million or whatever it costs because it's $500 a square foot to build something. And then for a private residence, but it costs us $700, $750 to $1,000 a square foot by the time we go through all the redraws and everything. Well, Rabbi Booth, he's such a kind man, but they told him to put the electrical unit down in the garage. They put the electrical unit down in the garage. Then somebody else comes and says, you have to move this electrical unit. This is an electrical unit for the entire building. So now he has to pay the cost to move it outside again. And these are the dollars and cents of parishioners. So I think it's an issue. I just think it's an issue.
I mean, if the city mandates us to do something, both times we were instructed by city officials of what to do. So that needs to somehow get coordinated, that we just get one directive from the city.
All right. Thank you everyone again for coming. Definitely some common themes around the challenges of working with the city, the need for a greater respect for our faith communities and our believers within our communities, and a need to understand the real affordability challenges that our parishioners and congregations and communities face, as well as to address the increasing, I guess the word is hatred, that many of our communities are feeling right now. So thank you all for sharing these very important insights with the HRC. In terms of next steps, like I said, we'll follow up with an email to everyone who came. Thank you so much for coming. In that email, I will include the link to the needs assessment. For those who have outlets, newsletters, please get the word out. It is a really important way for your congregations to vote about what our city needs to be spending our grant dollars on. And it's a really easy vehicle for people's voices to be heard. The other is that we have an HRC mailing list that we would love to add you all to. I will just go ahead and add you to it if you come today. If you don't want to be on it anymore, just let us know. But that HRC mailing list will let you know what's coming up on the agendas. And you can, look and see, oh, is this something that relates to my community or that my community would be interested or want to get involved with. And every single meeting has public comments. So where there is an opportunity for you as leaders or for your communities to speak up, we welcome you here. I hope you've seen it's a much more relaxed way to participate and get your voice heard if you don't want to go all the way up into the City Hall meetings. And with that, I'll just say thank you again for coming. And we will continue these conversations. I know there are some folks who wanted to be here who couldn't. There may be some folks who hear about this after the fact because our context lists were not 100%. We did our best. I think we now have the best list we've had in a long time. And so this may be something we revisit again this year. And if not this year, I think it should be something we should revisit at a more regular cadence to get folks together to hear from each other. You all hearing from each other and us hearing from you as well. So thank you again.
Thanks for having us. We still have council member and public comment, and then we want to do a photo with all our great faith leaders. Thank you.
Sorry, Councilwoman, did you want to say something?
So, hi, I'm Julie Lithcott-Hames. I'm the city council member who is the official liaison to the HRC. And I just want to echo the gratitude to all of the faith leaders who came and shared their 3 minutes tonight. I do have two suggestions, if not heartfelt outright asks around housing. We would love for congregants to help us build more housing. And if they are single-family homeowners, they can be part of the solution. They can split their lots, they can sell the back half, they can allow a developer to build a second dwelling with an ADU on it. They can create two homes on the back half of their lot. If they can afford to do it themselves, they don't need to sell the back half. They can just split and do that. The more we can encourage our single-family homeowners to realize that they are sitting on an enormous asset, and if they care a lot about creating more housing, they can be part of the solution. I think we invite the community to appreciate that we can all be in this together. The second thing, it's so awkward for me to
Sorry, Julie, quick follow-up on that. Let's sync afterwards so that we can, in the email we send as a follow-up, let folks know what the concrete next steps would be for them to get that message out to their congregants.
That sounds great. The second thing is, it has been acknowledged, perhaps Pastor Altman, Reverend Altman made the point, as did others, that the neighbors are often so problematic. And Pastor Smith said, we've been here for we were here before there was a neighborhood, and now they have the audacity to be upset that we have lines around the block for vaccines. What can we all do, I'm asking the room, to help our community at the level of the individual homeowners grow, to stop opposing apartments and safe parking and cooling centers? We have people opposing cooling centers. And I want to invite all of us to the task of trying to help our fellow Palo Altans understand what it means to be part of a human community, where some have and some don't have, and some are fine and some suffer, and of the joy of doing the work of trying to serve the greater good. I'm not trying to preach to y'all. I know y'all know this. As a city council member, what I'm saying is, I know we need your help in trying to change hearts and minds. Zoning is a part of the problem, yes. But if we're going to make zoning changes, we have to have the support of the community, or else they will vote it down, as they did with the affordable senior housing project on Maybell Avenue, my neighborhood, 10 years ago. Okay, we all have the work to do to collectively help our community grow to be even more compassionate.
Thank you. First of all, I wanted to thank Commissioners Smith and Stimler for organizing this event and inviting all the faith leaders.
It's all Mary Kate.
Commissioner Stimler, thank you so much for putting this together. And I know logistically it was difficult to get a date that everybody could come. So especially, once summer starts. So we really appreciate it. I'm happy that we were able to get this in, before our summer break and have such a insightful discussion. I know personally, I've learned a lot about the different faith communities in the area and what you all do and all the social services. It's always a great reminder to learn, all the different aspects of community life that you're involved in, that it's not just a service, you provide so much for the community. It's interesting how, a lot of the same topics came up and the same concerns and the want to convene with the other interfaith leaders. I have a question for Minka before we go into public comment. The safe parking program, how did that get started? Do you know what started it? Was it the city? Was it the faith leaders?
There was a couple iterations about that. I think maybe Reverend Morgenstern, because I think your congregation was the first one. I think it was the Move Mountain View. Right. We had gone to, there was about 8 years ago, there was a move to try to do some type of safe parking programs, and it just was not successful at that time. So this newer iteration with the city's pilot program and especially hopefully with the making that ordinance permanent, it was on a trial basis. The hope was to make the process even more simple. But I think, for congregations who have done it or would have liked to have done it, to give feedback to the city, continually on that process. But we tried, several years ago, and it was really the second iteration, to the best of my recollection, where we were able to have, I believe, the 4 sites that we have now. Could be 5, but I believe it's 4.
So it sounds like there's an interplay between not-for-profits and the faith communities and the city.
I think the first time there wasn't this other partner that I think the faith communities felt a little bit on their own for the operation. So I think the addition of having an operator that had the experience in Move Mountain View made a big difference. So I see that echoed here.
Well, I think it's been a great success. So it's really important to highlight the interplay between all these different organizations and how when everybody works together, things can be successful. So thank you so much. All right, let's open to public comment. And then after public comment, we'll take a 15-minute break.
Okay, do you have any cards? Okay, so we have 2 speakers online. The first one is Leah. Leah, you have 3 minutes. Go ahead, please.
Yes, thank you very much for letting me speak. My name is Leah. I'm a Palo Alto resident. I'm also Jewish, and I just wanted to reply to comments from Rabbi Koritsinski. First of all, I want to thank you for sharing your experience. I'm so very sorry that your congregation experienced bomb threats, and the incident in the library. And so that fear for safety. I do want to mention that as a Jewish person who has been involved in Palestinian solidarity movements with a group called Vigil for Gaza, I've been in the presence of people of all faiths, all backgrounds, all races, and I have to say that to me, that is what collective liberation is. And if we want to find safety as Jewish people, we have to, it's not just safety for us, it's for everyone. And that means safety for Muslims, for Christians, for Baha'i, Buddhists, Hindus, any religion or no religion. And I think that is very important. That is, for me, what I've been taught about in my faith. In the Jewish faith, is to say that we stand and we support everyone. And one other teaching that I've learned from the Holocaust, because I am the granddaughter of Holocaust survivors, is never again means never again for anyone. And that is crucial, that we stand up for for all people, and that we show our humanity. And I also want to say that I hear Samina's words. My heart goes out to you, and I really, really pray for a ceasefire so that everyone is free, feels safe, can live in peace and dignity. Thank you very much.
Thank you. The next speaker is Azadeh. Azadeh, you have 3 minutes. Go ahead, please.
Hello, I'm a Muslim and I've been living in Palo Alto for the past 12 years. What stands out to me tonight is that there's a large Muslim community in Palo Alto and other Muslim leaders in Palo Alto, but only one was invited to speak tonight. She was great, but my point is, I'm not sure if there was enough outreach to invite other Muslim leaders in Palo Alto to speak tonight. Moving forward, I think there should be an equal number of speakers from each faith in order to create a fair forum. Regarding what's happening to the Muslim community in Palo Alto, while it's socially acceptable to call for gender and race equality, somehow our community in Palo Alto has created an environment where it's not okay to call for Palestinian lives. When people speak of ceasefire, they fear of repercussions at work or with friends, or of being labeled anti-Semitic. The only way to move forward, I believe, is to allow a safe environment for Muslims to speak their voice. I know of so many Muslims that are genuinely hurt by what's going on in Palestine, but they're afraid to speak up. They're afraid of losing their jobs. They're afraid of wearing headscarf or the keffiyeh. They're afraid of their children being retaliated against if they speak up. Not too long ago, a mother wearing a keffiyeh walking with her elementary school kid in Palo Alto was shouted at by another woman who drove up to her and wished death upon the keffiyeh wearing mother's kids. Just a few days ago, a Muslim man celebrating an important Islamic festival was called the devil in San Francisco. When did hatred like this become acceptable? We need to have educational classes on Islamophobia. As a community, we also need to do more to address the Muslim sufferings in Palo Alto. The Palestinian suffering in Gaza is Muslim suffering in Palo Alto. We need to create a safe place for Muslims to be allowed the opportunity to educate the larger community as to what this war means to them and how it's affecting the Muslim community at large. Thank you.
Thank you. No more public comments, so we'll take a 10, did I say 15?
Oh, sorry, can I just make one thing for the record, which is that we did invite more members of the Muslim community. They just weren't able to attend tonight. And we would welcome to have more feedback from the Muslim community as well. And if someone is interested in coming to a future meeting, we would love to hear from you.
Thank you, Commissioner Simler. We'll take I think I said 15 minutes before. We'll take a 15-minute break.
We got to take a picture. Come on, everybody.
Thank you.
Your microphone, Chair?
Sorry. We're going to move on to business item number 2, which is the review and finalization of the draft 2024-2025 work plan. This, if you remember, is what we worked on last time. And the HRC voted to have leadership meet with our staff, with Minka and Elena, and put it in a work plan format and then come back and present it to the commission so we can vote on it. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the process. I'm not going to read the work plan. I'm hoping that everybody had a chance to look at the work plan and came prepared with their comments, if there are any. The way that we divided it up, we divided it up by our, core responsibilities, the things that we do every year, and then goals and tasks that were really flushed out and ready to go. Such as, conduct listening session with local faith leaders to better understand their need in the communities they serve. Check. So we've done that one. And then things that we weren't positive or needed some exploration. We talked about them last time, but we weren't totally positive on where the HRC would fit, where we would bring value to the table, or how we could, help. We put down under listening sessions. So that was pretty much the process that we came up with to try to divide it up. And we divided up according to the different subcommittees that we came up with last time. So I'm gonna ask if anybody has any comments to the work plan. So if you do play, just let me know and I'll call on you.
I have a comment.
Commissioner Smith.
I think you guys have done a phenomenal job. I would like to move it to a motion. Can I do that?
If there are no other comments.
You might want to go to public comment before you go to motion. So allow anybody else to speak and then, yeah.
Okay. We'll table that for while we go to public comment. Do we have any public comments on this business item?
So if you want to make a public comment, you need to raise your hand now if you'd like regarding the work plan. There are no hands raised, Chair, and no one in the room.
Okay, since there are no public comments, Commissioner Smith, do you have a motion?
I move that we accept the phenomenal work plan put together by our chair and our vice chair.
I second. Am I allowed?
Yeah. Yes.
I second Commissioner Smith.
Okay, so Commissioner Smith moved the work plan as is, and Vice Chair Krause seconded. We'll go to a vote now. Commissioner Barr?
Aye.
Commissioner Shea?
Aye.
Vice Chair Krause?
Aye.
Commissioner Smith?
Yes.
Commissioner Causey?
Aye.
Commissioner Stimler?
Yes.
Chair Eberly? Aye. Motion passes. So we will make this draft our final work plan, and then we'll be presenting it to the City Council.
Yes, at this point, that's the August 19th.
Great.
When I'm at the convention. Okay.
It's with, I think there are most of the work plans for most of the commissions are going that night, so. And I have not even heard format if they're asking the leadership of each commission to make any statements. They did ask if someone was going to be present, but I don't know the process if they're asking for a statement or a presentation.
Thank you. Mink, I just realized I was going to see if anybody wanted to volunteer to help.
You can still do that.
Can I do that now, or should I do it when we do commissioner reports?
You can do that now. I mean, it's not something you vote on, but it is related to this agenda item, so feel free to do so.
Okay. So I hope everybody's happy with their assignments as far as liaisons, council buddies, and core responsibilities and ad hoc subcommittees are concerned. We did try to take everybody's preference and came up with this list. I did notice, though, that on the ad hoc subcommittee for public safety, only Commissioner Kraus is in it. I know that Darrow Savage
Yes.
has been kind enough to help.
Yeah.
She's going to volunteer to help you put
Yes.
together the forum.
Because we have it all worked out anyway, so we will collaborate on that.
Do you think you need anybody else to volunteer, or do you think the two of you can get it done?
We always like a little help, but it's fine. We can do it if we have to.
I'll just put it out. If there are any commissioners that would like to help with that event. You don't not have to be a member of the ad hoc subcommittee. You would just be helping out with the event, and you already have two people helping with the event. Okay.
Don't all come together.
Commissioner Kraus,
What's the timeline? Do you have an ideal timeline for that event?
I can't.
Do you have a timeline for that event? A sense of when it will be happening?
We're gonna do it in the fall.
Okay,
in the
yeah,
very
my
beginning.
fall is unfortunately not a great time for
I
me.
can't hear you.
I'm just saying my fall isn't a good time. I'm teaching in the fall, so.
Oh, that's good. That happened. Good.
So Vice Chair Kraus, I mean, I would say staff, if there are things in association with the event that staff is able to
Exactly.
assist as well.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you. I can always help out if you
I
need
know you
anything as
can.
well. So, thank you so much.
No problem.
Okay, so we'll move on to business item number 3. So this is, we were contacted by a member of the Muslim community, and they would like us to consider, supporting the Solidarity Celebration picnic to commemorate Juneteenth and Eid ul-Adha. Hopefully I said that correctly. And that was also in your packet, the flyer, and it looks like it's being co-sponsored by the American Muslim Voice Foundation and the NAACP Silicon Valley. And so far it is supported by 2 of our council members, Julie Lithcott-Hames and Vicky Vinker, and Pastor Coloma Smith, also supporting. So we would like to bring it to the commission to see if you would like to support it as well. And I believe Pastor Smith is going to make a motion.
Oh, I'm going to give an explanation and a
Okay,
motion.
great.
Eid and Juneteenth are both festival celebrations. So as I was approached by a very active part of our community, it became a very easy yes to say, let us celebrate these 2 festivals together. I think it is the kind of low-hanging fruit where nobody can say celebrating festivals together is good at building unity and community. So in one of my multiple roles, are supporting this event. I would love to see the HRC, and I'll make a motion to say we should look at doing this event because it is community, it is unity, it is, I think, a valid thing for us to support. So I'd like to make a motion that the HRC would be a sponsor, or what is it?
It's a supporter.
Support.
Thank you. I knew my language wasn't right. Yes, ma'am.
Can I ask you a question?
Mhm.
What does it mean? Whoops. What does it mean? Do we give financial support? It's just.
No,
What's it
yeah,
mean?
the commission doesn't have the ability to give any financial support. So
Oh.
to be a co-sponsor in the city's realm indicates some level of financial support or some kind of waiver of city funds. So what the HRC has the ability to do is just be a supporter. So it's like,
Why not?
thank you for
Okay.
doing this event. It's the same thing you did for the peace picnic.
Why not? Please make your motion, sir.
I'd like to move that we support the picnic this Sunday that commemorates the Solidarity Celebration Picnic to commemorate Juneteenth and Eid al-Adha.
I'll second that motion. And we'll go ahead and vote. Commissioner Barr,
Aye.
Commissioner Shea,
Aye.
Vice Chair Krause,
Aye.
Commissioner Smith,
Aye.
Commissioner Causey. Aye. Commissioner Stimler,
Aye.
Chair Eberly, aye. Motion passes. So we'll support this event. I love anything that brings, two things together. I love the intersectionality of it all. Unfortunately, I would not be in town, but I hope some of our commissioners can attend.
I'll be
event.
sharing words
Great.
between 2 and 2:30.
Chair, would you like staff or will you be back in touch with the community member regarding the decision tonight?
I will.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
One thing I'd also love is if in our follow-up message to the folks who came tonight, maybe we could invite them
And no,
as well.
Rabbi Hayim was asking me about this celebration. So I think there would be folks that would love to celebrate. So if we can share this would be a great starting point. Yeah.
That would be great. So can we do that, Minka?
Yes,
We'll
I just
add-
want to make sure on that list that you had, Commissioner Stimler, it has everybody's email. Actually, I have it because you included me on the reminder.
It's all
And,
in the calendar invite, all the folks who I.
Yes.
Yep.
Yes.
But I will help draft up that note. And the other thing was Julie's request that we put something in around reminding residents that they can help with the housing crisis by if they are homeowners, by using their own properties to have ADUs. And I don't know if there's something specific we could ask.
Yeah, I think that's a message that needs to be a little more developed than mine or yours, just to send a thank you to folks for
Maybe some follow-up
attending and some
afterwards, yeah.
follow-ups. If the council member has it, but I'm not well enough versed
me
in the
neither.
housing policies to
Me
be
either.
able
Maybe
to
I'll
do
send
that.
a note to
Yes.
council member as well, but maybe we'll do one quick follow-up from tonight and then a more meaty follow-up later.
I forgot that we should open for public comment now. Agenda
That
item
is
number 3.
true. So if anybody would like to give public comment on item number 4, support of the Solidarity Picnic, please raise your hand now. There are no raised hands, Chair.
Okay, thank you. All right, so we're going to move on. We're done with our business items for today, and we'll move on to commissioner reports. Does any of our commissioners have a report? Anything that they'd like to share?
Solidarity celebration. If y'all can make it, that'd be great.
Thank you.
I want to give a huge shout out to Minka and Elena for their work doing the what did you call it? The human services get together. What was that? Where my sister and I cut hair.
Oh, the homeless services.
The homeless
fair.
services get together. Yeah, it was really, really well done. It was really moving to see, I don't know, people who are kind of falling through the cracks, receiving a tremendous amount of support and care.
And Mary Kate and her sister do a great job cutting hair. So
we were the stylists.
Yeah, they were the stylists.
My sister's a very gifted amateur hairstylist. Me, not so much, but the price was right.
It was a gift because we had been looking, and another local source that does free cuts wasn't able to come, and I kept on sending out please to anybody I know, and Mary Kate did it. And how many haircuts did y'all give?
I did like 4 or 5, and I think my sister did a dozen in 2 hours.
Yes.
A dozen haircuts. Yeah. Good for you. Yeah.
Thank you. Any other commissioner reports? Okay, Vice Chair.
I'd like to thank you for doing that lovely gathering for Daryl Savage on her retirement after 17 years of service. Thank you.
You're welcome. I think that was, I think, Adriana, wasn't that something you brought to my attention? I'm starting to forget now, but I think it's, how you thank people for their service is really important.
Yes,
And to
it
show
is.
up for things like that is really important. And I saw the effect that it had on Daryl with the really wonderful turnout. And Vice Chair Kraus and Elena and I were able to be there at the council meeting with Daryl and her family. There were also, I thought Daryl's 17 years was amazing, but it's like most of them that night had 10 or more years, people on different commissions. So she is, among other stars in the community that have given a lot of their time to the city.
Particularly the historical commission.
I don't have a commissioner's report. I have a commissioner's question. Can I? Is there a beginner's handbook on agency liaisons, council buddies, course, so on and so forth?
I'd be happy to have a conversation with you. And your liaison is an agency that you're probably better known there than maybe me. So but I'm happy to give you like
Just
how
like
to make
the
the
council
first
buddies, I'm not quite sure
entree into
what I'm
that.
supposed to do for the council buddies.
Yeah.
So I'll
Please do.
talk to you. Okay, thanks.
I'd just like to give a big shout out to Minka. I called her and we had a conference at my church where we had 15 churches from the Bay Area come, and we collected something like 1,500, 2,000 wash rags, soap, everything. So the nice ladies from the Opportunity Center came. They came and they were like, "Oh, we'll put it in our car," but they had to come back like the next week with a truck load of stuff. But if again to affirm what Mary Kate said earlier, call Minka, she'll figure it out. But it was great. I'm grateful for her department for always helping the community and always finding good ways. So thank you.
You're welcome.
Yes.
One more. Our HESREP needs assessment, and the meeting that we're having next week and the surveys that have been distributed. Thank you all. And if you haven't sent them out, please send them out. We've got till June 30th. We need to hear your input. I made sure that it was posted on some of the Palo Alto Unified School District sites, but I by no means am exhausted the schools. So if you have children in the local district, please send them out.
I want to thank Commissioners Kraus and Shea, and obviously Elena, and for just all the work that we've been doing on the needs assessment. I think every day, Elena and it's like, where else can we send it? Where else can we send the announcement to get the word out? We realize no one likes doing surveys, and this one is a little bit of a long one. But if you all have any more ideas where we can send it, there is
all the faith leaders.
Yeah, I sent it out to
No, send it to them again.
5 of them. I'm going to include it in
No, send it as important. This is how your community gets voice, and only it, and make it a 1-2 sentence thing. I'm just telling you how to get their attention.
No, I've cut my announcement down to like 2.5 lines. So I'll send that. I have, now I have these as well, but the only other faith leader list that I have is going through Reverend Altman. So, and she has gotten the announcement as all the faith leaders that have safe parking programs as well. Yeah.
Thank you.
Do we know how many we've received so far?
Yeah, so we have, as of last Friday, We had 350 something. But I will say we had at least 300 of those 3 days after the survey went out for the very first time. So like any survey, once it hits the first time, it's this, ripple of folks. I got really excited and I said, we're going to get to 1,000. At this point, I'm hoping for like 500-600.
Yeah.
So
That's strong.
yeah.
It just hit the WhatsApp group
Oh, good.
in the Palo Alto. It just
Can we put in Palo Alto
Yesterday.
moms?
I already did it for Palo Alto Mom.
Okay.
Yeah. That'd be great.
See, that's what happens because everybody will say something and has a link to a group that Elaine and I either don't have a link to or don't know about. So if anybody is listening to this meeting, it's www.cityofpaloalto.org, HSNA 2024. And it's available in 4 languages.
Well done. Thank you.
5 languages.
All right. Any staff report? Minka.
I think just a reminder, which you will probably already do, Chair, is that there's no July meeting.
Correct. No July meeting.
And no
Yeah,
August?
We don't usually. We're back in August.
Dang.
So the next meeting is on August 7th. I will say that
I
at
won't
this
be here.
point, I'm sorry.
I'll be on vacation.
Okay, well, hopefully we'll at least have 5. Okay, we're down to 5 already. We're down to 4. So if we get any less than 4, we will need to reschedule. So if Commissioner Causey, Everly, Kraus, and Shea can let me know. And then Elena and I might just doodle a time for later in the month. I will
September.
say, at this point, August 19th is the date that our long-awaited AA-NHPI report will go to council and the work plan. It's also possible that your work on the listening sessions will go then as well, but I don't know. I just trying to think the utility of having it all go one night, but it really depends on the council schedule. So I'll keep you up to date on that as I know it.
Vice Chair.
Minka, do we have an update? Because I did not hear the meeting Tuesday night on Caltrain's El Camino,
I don't.
the RV parking. Do we have any update at this point?
So,
Did Melissa?
yeah, I was not at that meeting. Melissa's going to be providing me with an update. I think you probably read that the council approved the bike lane project from Caltrans. I know the city is continuing to work with partners on the issue of the individuals that are living in their RVs on El Camino. So that is something ongoing, and but I don't have any updates at this point.
Okay. Don't have anything else, Minka?
No.
No. All right. So no July meeting. We're back here in August and meetings adjourned. Thank you.